train begins to lose its momentum long before the station comes into view. It is a gradual shedding of speed, a heavy mechanical sigh that vibrates through the floorboards and into the soles of my shoes. Outside the wide glass windows, the Hida Mountains have turned from green giants into silhouettes of indigo and charcoal, pressing in against the fading light of the afternoon. The river that has followed us for hours, a serpentine ribbon of turquoise, finally slips away behind a ridge of cedar trees. We drift. The engine's hum drops an octave, settling into a low, throaty purr. The announcement chime sounds, a gentle, four-note melody that seems to dissolve into the air rather than interrupt it. The automatic voice speaks softly, first in Japanese, then in English, announcing Takayama. There is no rush in the cabin. The other passengers stir with a quiet, practiced efficiency. A book is closed. A jacket is smoothed. I reach up to the overhead rack, my fingers brushing the cool fabric of my bag before I pull it down. It has a reassuring weight, a density that anchors me to this moment. The brakes hiss, a long, escaping breath of air. We slide alongside a platform that smells of damp concrete and cool mountain mist. The doors glide open. I step out. The air here is different. It is thinner, cleaner, carrying a sharpness that speaks of high altitude and pine needles. The platform is gray and functional, a long strip of concrete under the shelter of a metal roof. I adjust the strap on my shoulder, letting the weight settle into the muscle, and begin the walk toward the exit. This is the beginning of the long, slow rhythm of arrival. My shoes strike the platform with a dull, flat sound. It is a solid, unyielding surface, gritty with the dust of the day. Scridge step, scridge step. The sound is dry and devoid of echo, absorbed by the open air, and the train tracks to my left. I keep my pace steady, matching the slow trundle of a suitcase being pulled by a passenger 10 feet ahead of me. The strap of my bag digs slightly into my shoulder, a focused pressure point that grounds my awareness. I lift the shoulder, a micro adjustment, and let it fall back. The bag swings subtly against my hip, a pendulum marking time. I reach the stairs. They are covered in a heavy, industrial rubber, ridged to prevent slipping. My footsteps change here. The sound becomes a muted thud, a low-frequency impact that travels up through my shins. 1 step down, pause. 2 steps down, pause. The rhythm is hypnotic. I am not thinking of the destination, only the descent. The handrail is cold under my palm, a smooth, stainless steel guide that leads me down into the underpass. Entering the tunnel beneath the tracks, the acoustic shifts immediately. The ceiling is low, the walls tiled in pale cream. The air is still here, holding the faintest scent of oil and ozone. My footsteps become sharper. Click. Clicky, clicky. The sound bounces off the hard surfaces, returning to me almost instantly. It is a lonely, precise sound. The floor here is tiled, smooth and cool. There is less friction than on the platform. The soles of my shoes glide for a fraction of a second before gripping. A tiny squeak of rubber against polish accompanying every third step. I watch the floor pass beneath me, square after square, a mesmerizing grid of beige and gray. I reach the escalator leading up to the main concourse. I step onto the metal tread. The machine takes over. There is a deep, churning hum from beneath, a vibration that tingles in the arches of my feet. I stand still. The bag feels heavier now that I am motionless. I switch it to the other shoulder, the fabric sliding over my coat with a soft rustle. The metal ridges of the escalator step are silver and clean. I watch the wall rise beside me, a slow vertical panning shot of advertisements for local sake and festival floats. But I do not read them. I simply let the colors wash past. At the top, the station hall opens up. It is a modern space, high-ceilinged and airy, incorporating light wood that mimics the local cypress. The floor changes again. Here, it is a polished stone composite, speckled like a bird's egg. It is harder than the tile, more resonant. The concourse is a wide valley of low information. There are no frantic crowds, only the spacious quiet of a mountain town station. I walk down the center of the hall. The sound of my shoes is now a hollow talk, talk, talk. It is a spacious sound, giving a sense of the volume of air above me. I focus on the sensation of walking, the way the heel strikes first, absorbing the shock, the roll of the foot forward, the flex of the toes, the push off. It is a cycle I have repeated millions of times. Yet now, in this corridor of transition, it feels significant. The heavy bag pulls me slightly to the left. I engage the muscles of my core to stay upright. A constant, unconscious balancing act. A patch of carpet appears near the waiting area. I cross onto it. Silence. The click and clack vanish instantly, replaced by a muffled, crushing softness. The sudden absence of sound is startling, like stepping into a library. My pace slows. The drag of the carpet against my soles creates a resistance that feels like wading through shallow water. I linger in this quiet zone for a moment. The air conditioning hums overhead, a white noise that blankets the space. I breathe in. The air inside the station is neutral, temperature controlled, waiting. Crossing back onto the hard floor, the rhythm returns. Talk, talk. I approach the ticket gates. The plastic flaps are open. I pass through, the sensor beeping a polite, high-pitched confirmation. Beyond the gates, the floor transitions to the final stretch before the outdoors. It is a textured paving, slightly rougher, designed to bridge the interior and the exterior. The sound of my shoes becomes grittier again, losing the hollow resonance of the main hall. I can see the glass doors ahead. They are the threshold. I stop for a second to adjust my grip on the bag's handle. My hand is warm against the leather. I flex my fingers, feeling the stiffness in the joints from the long travel day. I take a breath, exhale slowly, and step toward the glass. The automatic doors slide apart with a whisper of mechanics. The transition is absolute. The climate-controlled stillness of the station is swept away by the reality of the evening. The air is crisp, carrying a distinct chill that nips at my ears and nose. It smells of cedar smoke and damp earth. I walk out onto the plaza. The ground here is paved with large, flat stones, uneven and ancient feeling, though they are likely new. The sound of the city is not a roar, but a murmur. Takayama is winding down. I turn away from the station facade, moving toward the older quarters. The streets narrow. The asphalt gives way to darker pavement, flanked by drainage channels where clear mountain water rushes with a constant, gurgling energy. This sound of water becomes the soundtrack of the walk. It bubbles and rushes, a liquid ribbon tying the streets together. The buildings lower themselves. The glass and steel of the station area recedes, replaced by dark timber and white plaster. I am entering the preservation district, or at least the edges of it. The light is dim here, spilling warm and yellow from behind latticed windows. I walk close to the buildings to stay out of the breeze. The wood of the facades is dark, stained by years of weather and care. I run a hand along a wooden post as I pass. It is rough, grained, and cold. It feels permanent. There are few cars. The primary sound is the slap of my shoes on the pavement and the rushing water in the gutters. Occasionally, a bicycle passes, the whir of its chain distinct and close, followed by the soft crunch of tires fading into the distance. The heavy bag is no longer a burden. It is a companion. Its weight is familiar, a reminder that I have everything I need. I am self-contained. I turn a corner, and the Ryokan stands halfway down the block. It is not grand, but it has a presence. A low, tiled roof overhangs the entrance, protecting a split curtain, the norin, that hangs across the doorway. The fabric is a deep navy blue, fluttering slightly in the mountain breeze. A single lantern glows beside the door, casting long, soft shadows across the wood. I approach the entrance. The ground changes one last time, from the street pavement to a smooth, washed stone step. I pause. I take a moment to listen to the silence of the street, the water, the distant wind in the pines. Then I reach out and slide the wooden lattice door open. The sound of the door is a rich, rolling rumble, wood on wood. Inside, the air is warm and still. It smells of incense, sandalwood perhaps, and the grassy, organic scent of tatami mats. The light is dim, golden, diffusing through paper screens. A woman in a kimono appears from a side corridor. She kneels on the raised floor, bowing low, her movements fluid and silent. She welcomes me, her voice a soft murmur that blends with the atmosphere. I step up from the stone entryway, the jenkin, onto the wooden floor of the hall. I leave my shoes behind. I leave the grit of the platform, the polish of the station, the stone of the street. I step into slippers that have been laid out for me. They are soft, yielding. The walk to the room is a shuffle. The slippers slide over the polished cypress floorboards. The wood glows with a deep amber hue, smooth as glass underfoot. We pass a small inner garden, visible through a glass wall. Moss, a stone lantern, a single maple tree. It is a captured piece of the mountain, held in stillness. The attendant slides open a door at the end of the hall. The room is simple, a space defined by what is not there. There is no clutter. The floor is covered in tatami mats, their woven texture catching the light. In the center, a low table sits on the rush grass. In the corner, an alcove holds a hanging scroll and a single flower in a ceramic vase. I step onto the tatami. It gives slightly under my weight, a firm but gentle support. The smell of the straw is stronger here, earthy and comforting. The attendant shows me the closet, the yukata robe folded neatly, the sash tied in a precise knot. She bows again and backs out, sliding the door shut. The click of the latch is the final seal. I am alone. I place my heavy bag in the corner. I do not unpack it yet. The weight is gone from my shoulder, leaving a phantom sensation of pressure that slowly fades as the blood returns. I rotate my arm, feeling the joint loosen. I move to the center of the room. The table has been moved to the side, and the futon has already been laid out for the evening. It is a cloud on the floor. The duvet is thick and lofty, covered in a white sheet that looks impossibly crisp. I change out of my travel clothes. The fabric of the day, denim and cotton, that has absorbed the dust of trains and stations, is shed. I slip into the yukata. The cotton is light, cool against my skin. I tie the sash, not too tight, letting the robe hang loosely. The window is open a crack, letting in a sliver of the cold night air to mix with the warmth of the room. I can still hear the water rushing in the canal outside, but it is distant now, a muted lullaby. I approach the bedding. I kneel first, the tatami pressing against my shins. I smooth my hand over the pillow. It is filled with buckwheat hulls, firm and shifting with a dry, rustling sound. I turn off the main light, leaving only a small floor lamp glowing in the corner. The shadows in the room soften the edges of the walls blurring into the darkness. I lower myself onto the mattress. The sheet is cool. It feels clean, smooth, and substantial against my skin. I pull the heavy duvet up to my chin. The weight of it is different from the bag. It is a distributed, hugging weight that presses me down into the floor, into the earth. I wiggle my toes, feeling the freedom of them against the starch of the linens. My body begins to unwind, muscle by muscle. The tension in my calves dissolves. The tightness in my back unspools. I stare up at the ceiling. The grain of the wood is barely visible in the dim light, swirling like a slow river. The silence of Takayama settles over the room, heavy and sweet. My breath deepens, slowing to match the imaginary rhythm of the water outside. I close my eyes, and the world narrows down to the sensation of the clean sheet and the quiet dark. The late afternoon light in Takayama does not fade so much as it retreats, pulling back from the center of the street to cling to the eaves of the dark, timbered buildings. Most of the day trippers have boarded their buses, their voices carried away with the exhaust, leaving the Sanmachi Suji district to settle into its true, heavy silence. It is a transformation of density. The air feels thicker now, cooled by the alpine altitude, and scented with the resinous tang of centuries-old cedar. A single lantern flickers to life further down the lane. It is not an electric snap, but a slow, warming glow that pushes against the indigo twilight. My boots make a hollow, scuffing sound against the black asphalt, a rhythm that seems too loud in the sudden quiet. To the left and right, the merchant houses stand shoulder to shoulder. They are unified in their architecture, a seamless wall of stained wood and latticework that hides the lives within. This is the old township, a preserved memory of the Edo period. But tonight, it feels less like a museum and more like a dormant creature waiting for the moon. There is a specific texture to the darkness here. It gathers in the recessed entryways and under the low-hanging eaves. I pause by a heavy wooden door, observing the intricate grid of the facade. This is the start of the shadow quest, a silent hunt for the patterns hidden in the architecture of the sake breweries. The latticework, known as kushi, is not merely a window guard. It is a filter. From the inside, it allows the merchants to see the street. From where I stand, it is a fortress of geometry. The wood has been polished by wind and hands until it gleams with a dull, matte luster. It absorbs the dim ambient light rather than reflecting it. Hanging above the entrance is a large sphere, suspended by a thick rope. It is the sujadama, a ball made of cedar needles. Once green, it has turned a deep, brittle brown, signaling to anyone who knows the code that the sake has matured, that the winter currents of fermentation have finished their work. I do not need to read the sign to know what lies behind the wall. The scent escapes through the slats, a faint, yeasty sweetness, sharp like pear skin and heavy like rice steam. It is a smell that warms the back of the throat. Moving deeper into the district, the lane narrows. The sky above is a ribbon of deepening violet, framed by the rigid silhouettes of the rooftops. Shadows lengthen, stretching out from the base of the buildings to touch the center of the road. I watch the interplay of the slats against the paper screens inside. Where a light is on within, the grid of the kushi casts a perfect, enlarged checkerboard onto the street, a projected cage of light and dark. I linger by a shop front where the owner is sliding wooden shutters into place for the night. The sound is dry and rhythmic. Clack, slide, thud, clack, slide, thud. He does not look up, focused entirely on the ritual of closure. It is a mechanic of finality, sealing the house against the coming night. I wait until the last shutter is seated, leaving a smooth, unbroken wall of wood before I turn away. The path curves gently, guiding me away from the merchant streets and toward the sound of water. This is the transition, the soft bridge between the solid timber of the town and the fluid movement of the river. The ground changes beneath my soles, the paved street giving way to the uneven, character-rich texture of stone pathways near the water. Here begins the long drift. There is no destination now, only the act of motion. The Miyagawa River flows to my right, a wide, dark body of water moving north. But closer, right at my feet, are the small, swift canals that run alongside the houses, engineered centuries ago to bring the mountain water to the doorsteps of the town. I settle into a pace that matches the current. One foot falls, then the other. The sound of the water in the narrow channel is high-pitched and busy, rushing over smooth river stones and slipping under small slab bridges. It is a constant, energetic chatter that underscores the deeper, slower roar of the main river below the embankment. The walking becomes a trance. There is no need to check a map or look for a landmark. The canal is the guide. It creates a line of sight that pulls the eyes forward, blurring the periphery. The stone path is gray and cool. My breath begins to synchronize with the rhythm of my stride. In for 3 steps, out for 3 steps. The air here is distinct from the street air. It carries the mineral scent of wet stone and the clean, cold vapor of snowmelt from the distant peaks. It touches the face with a damp coolness, settling on the skin like a fine, invisible veil. I pass a willow tree, its branches trailing in the water like long fingers. The leaves are still, heavy with the moisture of the evening. I do not stop to examine it. I simply let it slide past within my field of vision, a dark shape against the gray water, there and then gone. The rhythm continues. Left foot, right foot, the sound of boots on stone, the sound of water on stone, the occasional creak of a timber frame settling in the cooling air. There is a profound lack of urgency in this valley of time. The mind stops reaching for the next thought and simply rests on the sensation of movement. It is a suspension of responsibility. For these minutes, or perhaps hours, there is no history to learn, no menu to decipher, no schedule to keep. There is only the canal, the stone, and the walking. Sections of the path are illuminated by low, yellow street lamps that cast pools of light onto the water. As I walk through them, my shadow swings around me, lengthening behind, vanishing beneath, then stretching forward again. It is a pendulum of darkness keeping time with my progress. The Sito Canal widens slightly, then narrows. Small carp, dark and sluggish in the evening chill, hold their position against the current, their tails swaying with hypnotic regularity. I watch them without stopping, their forms merely darker shadows within the shadow of the water. They are anchors in the flow, holding steady while the world rushes past them. The sound of the river grows louder as the path dips. The separation between the walker and the water decreases. The dampness intensifies. It is a sensory immersion, a feeling of descending into the earth's own cooling breath. The repetition of the stride washes away the static of the travel day. The train ride, the luggage, the tickets, they all dissolve into the steady, uncomplicated reality of placing one foot in front of the other. Step, breath, flow, step, breath, flow. The visual field is simple. Gray stone, black water, white foam where the current breaks over a rock, the darkness of the trees on the opposite bank. It is a low information landscape, requiring nothing from the observer but presence. The eyes rest, the ears rest, the body moves on autopilot, carried by the momentum of the walk and the guidance of the canal. Gradually, the quality of the air shifts again. The dampness becomes visible. We have reached the time of the mistrise. It begins not as a cloud, but as delicate wisps curling off the surface of the Miyagawa. The temperature has dropped just enough to turn the river's breath into vapor. It glows faintly in the ambient light of the town, ghostly white tendrils that reach up toward the iron railings of the bridges. I slow my pace, letting the rhythm of the walk decay into a standstill. Leaning against the stone parapet of a small footbridge, I look down into the main channel. The mist is thicker here, pooling in the eddies and swirling around the supports of the larger bridges downstream. It softens everything. The sharp edges of the riverbank are blurred. The distant lights of the town on the other side are diffused into soft, glowing orbs without definition. This is the Miyagawa Canal at its most ethereal. The water below is black and glossy, reflecting nothing but the void, while the mist above it catches the stray photons of the night. It looks like a second river flowing in reverse, lighter than air, drifting slowly upward to rejoin the clouds. I cross the footbridge. The stone beneath my feet is arched, worn smooth by generations of sandals and boots. At the apex of the arch, the air feels suspended, caught between the flow of the water and the open sky. I pause here, suspended in the white quiet. The sound of the river is muffled now by the thickening mist, turning the roar into a hush. On the far side, a red postbox stands vivid against the muted tones of the evening. It is the only splash of color in a world of sepia and gray. Next to it, a small shrine is tucked into an alcove, a fresh offering of water placed before the stone fox statues. The liquid in the small white cup is still, a miniature mirror holding the reflection of a nearby street lamp. The cold is settling in earnest now. It is not a biting wind, but a seeping chill that reminds the body of the need for warmth. It is the perfect precursor to the evening's final destination. The anticipation of heat becomes a physical sensation. I can almost feel the phantom weight of the heavy cotton yukata and the enveloping embrace of the hot spring water. I turn away from the river, letting the sound of the current fade behind me. The streets leading back toward the Ryokan are narrow and winding. The buildings here are lower, domestic, their windows glowing with the warm light of television screens and kitchen fires. The transition from the elemental world of the river back to the human world of the inn is gradual. The smell of water and moss gives way to the scent of grilling fish and soy sauce drifting from a hidden ventilation fan. The silence of the mist is replaced by the soft murmur of a conversation behind a paper screen. My pace is slow, savoring the final stretch. The fatigue in my legs is a pleasant weight, a testament to the exploration. It anchors me to the ground, making the prospect of rest feel earned and necessary. Ahead, the entrance to the inn comes into view. A split curtain hangs across the doorway, dyed a deep, earthy russet. A lantern by the door creates a pool of welcoming light on the stepping stones. I stop for a moment just outside the threshold, looking back toward the darkness where the river flows. The mist has likely swallowed the bridge by now. The shadows of the Kushi latticework have merged with the night. The town has completed its withdrawal, leaving only the sound of water and the memory of stone. I reach out and push the fabric of the curtain aside. It brushes against my shoulder, a soft, heavy greeting. The door slides open with a whisper of wood on wood, and I step out of the cool night and into the warmth. The heavy timber beams of the Kusakabe Heritage House hold the silence of a century within their grain. It is a specific kind of quiet, born not of emptiness, but of density. The dark wood, polished by smoke and years of careful hands, absorbs the afternoon light and holds it in the high, vaulted ceiling. Here in the main room, the air feels cooler, settled and still, smelling faintly of dried pine and old charcoal. My socks slide silently over the tatami mats. The woven straw yields slightly underfoot, a soft, organic give that slows every movement. There is no rush here. The architecture itself demands a slower pace, a lowering of the gaze, a quieting of the breath. I move toward the inner courtyard. It is a small square of open sky, framed by the dark eaves of the merchant house. The light here is different, direct and unfiltered, falling across a carefully arranged landscape of stone and fern. I sit on the wooden veranda, the polished edge of the floor cool against my legs. In the corner of the garden stands the shishiodoshi. It is a simple mechanism, a length of bamboo balanced on a fulcrum, fed by a thin, steady trickle of water from a mossy spout. I settle against the wooden pillar to watch. Water flows. It is a clear, glass-like thread that falls into the open mouth of the bamboo tube. The sound of the filling is a rising pitch, a whisper that grows slightly deeper as the weight increases. The bamboo remains horizontal, still waiting. The water continues to pour. The balance shifts. The tube tips forward, bowing to the ground. The water rushes out in a sudden, clear splash against the stones below. Relieved of its weight, the bamboo swings back up. Take, the hollow rear end of the tube, strikes a stone hidden in the ferns. The sound is dry, resonant, and woody. It is a singular note that defines the silence around it. I listen. The silence returns, heavy and complete. Then the water begins to fill the tube again. The rhythm is irregular, dictated by the flow of the water. It is not a clock, it is a breath. I watch the water level rise. The bamboo holds its position, resisting gravity for a long moment, trembling slightly with the surface tension. Then the tipping point arrives. Down, splash, up, take. The sound echoes off the plaster walls of the courtyard. It is a sound meant to startle deer and boar in the mountains. But here, enclosed in this private garden, it serves only to measure the passing of the afternoon. I remain on the veranda for a long time. The shadows of the eaves lengthen across the white gravel. The light shifts from the bright white of midday to a warmer golden hue that catches the dust motes dancing above the ferns. There is nothing to do but listen to the cycle. The filling, the tipping, the release, the strike. Eventually, I stand. The wood creaks softly, a human sound amidst the water and stone. I leave the house, stepping out of the cool, preserved air and into the streets of Takayama. The sun is lower now, hanging over the western ridges. I turn my footsteps toward the edge of town, where the streets begin to incline. The pavement turns to cobblestone, and then to packed earth. The sounds of the shops and the rickshaws fade behind me. Ahead lies the path to Shirayama Park, the wooded hill where the castle once stood. The ascent begins. This is a time for the body to take over. The mind settles into the rhythm of the climb. The path is wide and lined with ancient cedars, their trunks thick and roped with bark that looks like gray velvet in the shade. One foot places itself in front of the other. The ground is firm, a mixture of hard-packed soil and protruding roots that have been worn smooth by generations of walkers. I find a pace that matches the slope. It is not fast. It is a steady, deliberate cadence. Left, right, left, right. The air changes as the elevation rises. The warmth of the town is left below, replaced by the cool, damp breath of the forest. It smells of cedar oil and wet leaves, a rich, dark scent that fills the lungs and clears the head. The trees grow tall here, their branches weaving together high above to form a canopy that filters the sky. Sunlight comes through in shafts, illuminating patches of fern and moss on the forest floor. I watch the play of light on the ground. It shifts with the wind in the branches, a dappled pattern of gold and shadow that moves like water over the roots. My breathing deepens. The incline is constant. There are no flat sections, just a continuous, gentle upward pull. The muscles in my calves tighten and release with each step. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. Step, breath, step, breath. A bird calls out from somewhere high in the canopy. A sharp, clear trill that vanishes instantly into the vastness of the woods. Then only the sound of my own footsteps remains. The crunch of dry needles underfoot, the soft scuff of a shoe against a stone. The path curves to the right, following the contour of the hill. A small shrine appears on the side of the trail, a miniature wooden structure weathered to the color of driftwood. I do not stop, but I acknowledge it with a glance. It is a marker of the journey, a sign that others have walked this way for centuries. I continue upward. The spacing of the trees changes. They stand further apart now, huge pillars supporting the roof of the forest. Between them, the undergrowth is thick with bamboo grass, the leaves rustling with a dry, paper-like sound as a breeze moves through them. The walking requires no thought. It is a mechanical action, a loop of movement that frees the mind to drift. There is no destination in the immediate sense, only the path stretching out ahead, rising and winding. 10 minutes pass, then 20. The repetition is a comfort. There is no complex sensory input to process, only the basics: the texture of the ground, the temperature of the air, the sound of the wind. My gaze rests on the path 3 feet ahead. I watch the small variations in the surface. A pebble of white quartz, a pine cone, a patch of bare earth where the rain has washed the needles away. The grade steepens slightly. I shorten my stride. The effort warms the body, contrasting with the cooling air. A light perspiration forms, cooling instantly in the breeze. It feels cleansing. The forest feels older here. The roots of the trees are massive, snake-like ridges that cross the path, forcing me to step over them. They are ancient anchors, holding the hill together. I listen to the pattern of my breath. In 2, 3. Out 2, 3. It syncs with the footfalls. The world narrows down to this simple equation of oxygen and movement. A gap in the trees opens to the left. For a moment, the view expands. I can see the distant ridges of the Japanese Alps, blue and hazy against the pale sky. Snow still clings to the highest peaks, glowing soft pink in the late afternoon light. Then the trees close in again, and the view is gone. I return to the tunnel of green and brown. The light is fading now, the gold turning to a deep amber. The shadows stretch longer, merging with one another, until the forest floor is bathed in a uniform twilight gray. The path begins to level out. The strain on the legs lessens. The rhythm of the walk changes, becoming longer, easier. The trees part, and the sky opens up above. I have reached the summit. This is the site of the castle ruins. There is no fortress here now, no wooden towers or tiled roofs. There are only the foundations, the bones of the place left behind by time. I walk toward the edge of the clearing. The ground here is uneven, shaped by mounds of earth and buried stones. In the center of the plateau rise the remnants of the walls. They are built of massive granite boulders, fitted together without mortar. I approach the nearest wall. It stands chest high, a rugged mosaic of gray stone. I reach out. My hand makes contact with the rock. It is cold, retaining the chill of the earth despite the day's sun. The surface is rough, crystalline, and hard, biting gently into the skin of my palm. I trace the line where 2 stones meet. The fit is impossibly tight. Even after hundreds of years, there is no gap. The stones were chosen, shaped, and placed with an intention that has outlasted the names of the masons who laid them. Patches of moss cling to the shadowed side of the wall. I brush my fingertips over the green velvet. It is damp, holding moisture from the morning mist or a recent rain. The contrast is sharp, the unyielding, cold hardness of the granite and the soft, fragile dampness of the moss. I lean against the stone foundation. The solidity of it is grounding. It feels immovable, a permanent anchor in a world of moving leaves and flowing water. Below, the town of Takayama is beginning to transform. I look down the slope. The valley is filling with the blue haze of dusk. The sharp edges of the buildings are softening, blurring into the landscape. One by one, the lights come on. A street lamp flickers into existence near the river. Then another. The windows of the houses begin to glow with warm yellow light. It happens slowly, a constellation forming on the valley floor. The sounds of the town drift up to me, but they are faint, stripped of their urgency by the distance. The distant hum of a car, the chime of a school bell marking the end of the day. They are merely textures in the silence of the hilltop. The air up here is crisp, carrying the scent of pine resin and the coming night. The sky above transitions through a spectrum of violet and indigo. The first star appears, a lonely point of light directly overhead. I keep my hand on the mossy stone. The dampness seeps into my skin, a cool connection to the history of this place. I imagine the castle that once stood here, the wooden floors, the watchfires, the snow piling up on the eaves. Now there is only the stone and the forest reclaiming its territory. The wind picks up slightly, rustling the bamboo grass at the edge of the clearing. It is a signal. The temperature is dropping. The day is done. I turn away from the view of the town and look back at the path that led me here. It is a dark tunnel now, leading back down to the warmth and the light. The descent begins. Gravity is an ally now. The walk down is easier, a controlled release of momentum. My boots find purchase on the familiar roots and rocks, guiding me back toward the valley floor. The anticipation begins to build, slow and steady, like the filling of the bamboo tube. Down there, amidst the yellow lights, the Ryokan awaits. I think of the sliding paper doors of my room. I think of the yukata, the cotton robe with its indigo patterns, crisp and clean. I think of the water, not the cold mountain water of the Shishiodoshi, and not the damp moisture of the moss. I imagine the thermal water of the onsen, the steam rising from the cypress tub, the heat that will wrap around the muscles of my legs, unknitting the tension of the climb. The image is vivid. The scent of hinoki wood, the sound of water overflowing the rim of the bath, the feeling of weightlessness. I descend through the darkening forest. The trees are silhouettes now, black ink against a deep blue sky. The rhythm of my steps is lighter, quicker. The path widens. The cobblestones return. The smell of wood smoke from the chimneys below reaches me, mixing with the scent of grilling beef and savory broth. The kaiseki dinner. Sensory fragments drift through my mind as I walk. The texture of ceramic bowls, the taste of pickled vegetables, the warmth of sake. But first, the bath. I reach the bottom of the hill. The streetlights cast pools of illumination on the pavement. The air here is still, protected by the valley walls. I walk along the river, the water moving silently in the dark, reflecting the lights of the bridges. The entrance to the Ryokan appears ahead. The lantern beside the gate is lit, a welcoming glow of paper and wood. I step through the gate. The gravel crunches softly under my shoes, a final grounding sound before the transition to the interior. The sliding door opens. The scent of incense and tatami rushes out to meet me. I leave the shoes in the entryway. The cool floor gives way to the softness of the mats. The world of stone and forest is left behind, replaced by the world of steam and silk. I move down the hallway. The lights are low. The air is warm. The day dissolves into the promise of the water, and the night settles comfortably over the roof of the inn. The afternoon light in Takayama has begun to change its texture. It shifts from the bright, flat gold of midday to a richer, heavier amber that seems to cling to the wooden facades of the old merchants' houses. The air cools, dropping slowly in temperature as the sun dips toward the ridgeline of the surrounding Alps. It is time to leave the grid of the lower town and find the stillness of the hills. My path turns north. The streets widen slightly, leading away from the bustle of the morning markets and the afternoon crowds. Here, the pavement changes from asphalt to gray stone, signaling the approach to sacred ground. The slope is gentle at first, a subtle incline that asks the legs to work just a little harder, warming the muscles in preparation for the climb. Ahead, the great stone torii gate of Takayama Hachimengu stands gray against the deep green of the cedar forest. It marks the threshold between the human town and the dwelling of the spirits. Passing beneath the heavy stone crossbar, the sounds of the town, the distant murmur of tourists, the rumble of delivery trucks seem to be cut away, replaced by the sound of wind moving through high branches. Gravel crunches rhythmically under my shoes. It is a dry, hollow sound, distinct and crisp. To the side, the purification fountain waits. A dragon, cast in dark iron, pours a steady stream of clear mountain water into a stone basin. I take a bamboo ladle. The wood is smooth, worn soft by thousands of hands before mine. The water is startlingly cold, shocking the skin of my fingers. A physical reset that washes away the heat of the day. Stairs rise ahead. They are wide, made of cut stone, flanked by ancient lanterns covered in patches of velvet moss. I ascend slowly, one step, then the next. The breathing deepens. The air here smells of damp earth, old pine needles, and the faint, sweet decay of fallen leaves. At the top, the shrine compound opens up. It is a space of gravel and wood, dominated by the silent majesty of the main hall. But today, The draw is not the main altar, but a smaller path to the side, a corridor shaded by trees where the summer tradition has been installed. It is the path of the Furin. The wind chimes. I step into the shade of the trellis. Overhead, hundreds of glass spheres hang from the wooden beams. They are suspended on thin strings, floating at different heights, creating a ceiling of transparent color. Clear glass, pale blue, soft green, and faint pink. Below each glass bell hangs a strip of paper, the tanzaku, waiting for the breeze. Here, the world narrows down to a single sense. The eyes may rest on the fluttering paper, but the mind settles entirely on the sound. A breeze wanders down from the mountain. It is not a strong wind, just a breath of air that flows like water through the trees. It reaches the first row of chimes. Tinkle, a high, clear note, then another, then a cascade. The sound is not a melody. It has no rhythm, no structure, no beginning and no end. It is a random, chaotic, perfect scattering of crystal notes. The glass bells are hand-blown, each one slightly different in thickness and shape, producing a tone that is unique to its own existence. I stand in the center of the corridor. The gravel is still beneath my feet. The wooden pillars of the trellis frame the view of the forest, but I do not look at the trees. I listen. The wind shifts. The sound swells. It is a wash of high-pitched ringing, a wave of coolness translated into sound. In Japan, the sound of the Furin is synonymous with cool air. To hear the chime is to feel the breeze before it touches the skin. The wave passes. The chimes slow. The ringing spaces out. Ring, clink, silence. I wait. The stillness is heavy, amplified by the memory of the sound. A single strip of paper twists on its string, spinning slowly in the aftermath of the gust. The paper is thick, textured, brushing against the air. Then the air moves again. I begin to walk through the tunnel of sound. My pace is incredibly slow, barely a movement at all. I place one foot forward, shifting my weight, letting the gravel settle before lifting the other. Above me, a blue chime rotates. The glass clapper inside swings, pushed by the motion of the paper strip below. It strikes the rim. A pure, sharp tone vibrates in the air. It hangs there, decaying slowly, fading into the background hum of the forest. I take another step. To my left, a cluster of clear chimes catches a stronger current. They sing together, a sudden burst of bright noise that feels like a splash of cold water. The sound is bright, glassy, fragile. It speaks of ice and streams and things that are clear. A green chime to my right answers. Its tone is slightly lower, mellower. It rings once, then twice. The paper strip dances. A frantic flutter of white against the dark green of the cedar boughs beyond. The repetition becomes hypnotic. Wind, motion, strike, ring, fade. I do not think about where the path leads. I do not think about the time. There is only this corridor of suspended glass. The light filters through the transparent bulbs, casting shifting patterns on the ground. Faint circles of light sway on the gray stones, moving in sync with the sounds above. The breeze dies down completely. The chimes fall silent. The silence is profound. It is not an empty silence, but a waiting one. The strips of paper hang motionless. The glass beads sit still in the centers of their bells. I stand perfectly still. My breath is slow, matching the stillness of the chimes. The air is cool against my neck. A crow calls out from deep in the woods, a harsh, organic caw that highlights the delicate artificiality of the glass sounds. Then a tremor in the leaves. A new breath of air arrives. It starts at the far end of the path. This time, I hear the approach before I feel it. A ripple of sound moves toward me, growing louder as the wind travels through the tunnel. It rushes forward, a swelling tide of tinkling glass. It washes over me. The sound surrounds me, omnidirectional and immersive. It is a rain of sound, a shower of tiny, clear notes that seem to vibrate in the chest. The air touches my face, cool and fresh, carrying the scent of cedar and the sound of the bells. I linger here. Time stretches. There is no urgency to leave this tunnel of resonance. I watch a single pink chime. The glass is pale, like the blush on a peach. The paper strip is written with ink, a wish or a prayer that I cannot read. The wind catches it. It spins. The clapper strikes. Chime. The note is sweet and round. It drifts away. I move forward again. The end of the trellis is visible, but it feels far away. I am content to exist in the middle. The gravel creates a low, crunching bass line to the treble of the glass. Step, pause, listen. Step, pause, listen. The light is dimming. The amber of the afternoon is deepening into the violet of early evening. The glass of the chimes loses its sparkle, becoming matte and cool in the twilight. The sounds seem louder as the light fades, clearer against the darkening backdrop of the trees. A gentle gust shakes the entire structure. The air is filled with 1,000 tiny collisions. Glass on glass, glass on bead, the friction of paper on air. It is a chaotic symphony of chants, composed by the mountain wind and played on instruments of silica and string. I reach the end of the path. The last chime hangs alone, a clear glass bulb with a blue strip of paper. It swings gently, rocking back and forth, but does not ring. It is a silent pendulum, marking the transition from the world of sound back to the world of silence. I turn back for one last look. The tunnel is a cavern of shadows now, the chimes invisible save for the occasional glint of reflected sky. But the sound continues, a faint, distant tinkling, like a memory of rain. I let the shrine fall away in layers. First, the sound of the chimes fades into the rustle of the trees. Then the smell of the cedar gives way to the scent of paved streets and evening fires. The descent is easier than the climb. Gravity assists the motion, carrying me down the stone stairs, back under the torii gate, and into the streets of the old town. The town has transformed. The shops are closing, their wooden shutters sliding shut with heavy, rattling thuds. Lanterns have been lit. They glow with a warm, paper-filtered light, casting soft circles on the dark wood of the buildings. The air has turned crisp, the distinct chill of the Japanese Alps settling into the valley floor. I walk toward the Ryokan. The streets are quiet. The day trippers have gone. What remains is the stillness of the residents and the travelers who have chosen to stay. The sound of my footsteps changes as I step off the asphalt and onto the stone entryway of the inn. The wooden door slides open. The interior warmth rushes out to meet me, carrying a complex aroma that signals the end of the journey. I step into the jenkin. I sit on the raised wooden step and untie my shoes. The laces loosen. The confinement of the day is removed. I place my feet on the tatami mats of the hallway. The straw is firm and textured, a tactile signal that I am home for the night. A soft, shuffling sound announces the approach of the staff. A quiet greeting, a gesture down the hall. I am led not to my room, but to the dining hall. The space is old. High ceilings are crisscrossed with heavy beams of dark, smoked timber, stained black by decades of fires. The floor is polished wood, gleaming in the low light. In the center of the room, sunken into the floor, are the irari, the traditional hearths. I settle onto the cushion on the floor. The table is low, built around the square pit of the hearth. Inside the pit, a bed of white ash cradles glowing logs of bainchaten charcoal. The heat radiates outward, a solid physical presence that warms the knees and the hands. The scent is the first course. It is the smell of the charcoal itself, clean, dry, and mineral. It lacks the acrid bite of a wood fire. Instead, it has a pure, intense warmth that smells of carbon and ancient trees. Mixed with this is the savory, salty aroma of grilling fish. Skewers have been planted in the ash. Ayu, the sweet fish of the river, are angled toward the coals. Their skins are golden and blistered, dusted with salt that sparkles like frost in the firelight. They do not sizzle loudly. They cook in a slow, patient silence, the heat penetrating the flesh without burning it. A tray is placed before me. The lacquerware is black and red, smooth as oil to the touch. The pottery is rough, earthy, shaped by hand. I lift a small cup of sake. The ceramic is warm. The liquid is clear. I take a sip. It is dry and sharp, cutting through the lingering dust of the wok. The meal unfolds in a rhythm as slow as the wind chimes. There is no rush here. The fire dictates the pace. I reach for a small bowl of simmered vegetables, a piece of pumpkin, a shiitake mushroom with a cross carved into its cap, a vivid green pod of snow pea. The broth is translucent, smelling of dashi and soy. I lift the mushroom with chopsticks. The texture is soft, yielding. The taste is earthy, full of the forest floor, mirroring the scent of the shrine I left an hour ago. The main focus returns to the hearth. The fish is ready. I carefully pull the skewer from the ash. The bamboo is hot. I slide the fish onto my plate. The skin cracks under the pressure of the chopsticks. Steam escapes, carrying the scent of the river. The flesh is white, flaky, and sweet. The salt on the skin provides a sharp counterpoint to the delicate meat. I eat slowly. The room is quiet, save for the crackle of the charcoal and the soft clinking of pottery. Other guests are shadows in the distance, their conversations reduced to a low, unintelligible murmur that blends with the atmosphere. A pot hangs from a hook over the fire. Inside, a stew of local beef and miso bubbles gently. The miso is dark, the red miso of the region. As it heats, the smell becomes richer, deepening the sensory landscape of the room. It is a scent of fermentation, of soybeans and thyme, a heavy, comforting aroma that promises fullness. I ladle the stew into a bowl. The steam rises in a thick column, warming my face. The beef is tender, dissolving on the tongue. The miso broth is thick and savory, coating the throat. It is a flavor of absolute grounding, heavy and dark and warm. The meal continues through its stages. Rice glistening and sticky, pickles yellow and crunchy, providing a sour snap to cleanse the palate. Tea roasted and brown, served in a cup that fits perfectly in the cupped palm of two hands. I sit back. The fire in the orori has settled down. The coals are no longer flaming, just pulsing with a deep, steady red light beneath a coating of gray ash. The heat is gentle now. My body feels heavy, weighed down by the good food and the warmth of the room. The muscles in my legs, tired from the climb to the shrine, relax completely. The staff clears the tray with efficient, silent movements. They leave a fresh pot of tea. I pour one last cup. I hold it, not drinking yet, just feeling the heat transfer from the ceramic to my skin. Outside the window, the garden is dark. A stone lantern offers a faint glow, illuminating a single fern frond. The night has fully arrived. The air in the room is still, suspended in the space between the end of the meal and the beginning of sleep. I stand up, moving slowly. The floorboards creak softly, a familiar, friendly sound. I leave the dining hall, the scent of the charcoal lingering faintly on my clothes, a souvenir of the evening's warmth. The hallway back to the room is dimly lit. The shadows are long and soft. I slide the door to my room open. The futon has been laid out while I was eating. It is a white island on the sea of tatami. The duvet looks thick and heavy. I move toward the window and slide it open just an inch. The sound of the river enters the room. It is a constant, rushing white noise, colder and deeper than the wind chimes, but sharing the same waterborne clarity. The air that slips in is chilled, a reminder of the mountains that surround this valley. I close the window, sealing the warmth inside. The room is silent. The light from the paper lamp in the corner is soft, casting no hard edges. I turn it down until it is just a glow. The day dissolves into the comfort of the bedding. The memory of the wind chimes fading into the rhythm of my own slow breathing. The night settles around the building, holding it safe until morning.